Hey y'all, hope you're doing good today. So I wanted to share a real life story, and it's very strange, I must say. But this is something that really came about in terms of a memorable event in hindsight after several other things happened in my life. And so I don't have the exact date, but I do have an approximation. So we're going to go with that. And I'm driving, so this is kind of a introduction, and then I will finish up at home and tie in some other things with the story. Uh-oh, this person's not paying attention at the light. Here we go. So, and I'm going to focus on driving, but I know you guys can hear me. So it was probably, and I have fall allergies too, so please overlook that. So I may be coughing here and there. It was about the year 2000, or possibly, I'm sorry, not 2000, 2020. It was either the year 2020 or 2021 when this happened. I was driving home late one night from work on this small little, 2-lane road, and it was very dark. This road did not have any street lights or anything like that, and it was very curvy, but I was very familiar with it. So I was taking this road home, and excuse me, I went around this curve, and when I went around this curve, there were a couple of cars that kind of met with me, from the other direction, that were also going around the curve in the other direction. So we were just kind of like coming up on each other and going about our ways. Okay, so the first car passed me, but something very, very weird happened at this point. And I'm just driving along, I'm not distracted. I'm paying attention. But again, it's very dark. So the first car, it was kind of like an SUV. It was sitting up kind of high like me. And it passed me. Well, right behind that car was a headlight. And it was so close to that car that it didn't look like it was possible for there to be a headlight there. It was like it was attached to that car, or in the middle or back portion of that car. There's no way somebody was following that person that close. But this happened so fast, okay? So I'm driving, I go around the curve, here's this car that passes me, and immediately there's this headlight. But the headlight that was right behind this car was not over in the lane it should have been. It was right in front of me. Right in front of me. And it was one of those things where, what do? It's just there. You go around the curve and it's just there. I didn't even have time to react at all. But I don't know if it was something supernatural and it was like a real thing, or if it was just my bodily response, fear-based, panic-based bodily response. I don't know. But when this single headlight came into my space right in front of me, it was like it passed through me. It looked like it passed through me, and it actually felt like something passed through me, just energetically though, okay? Again, this is very strange. And, it was so quick, so fast, that it was over like that. And I didn't really know what to make of it. I mean, there I was, still driving. It didn't make sense or whatever, so I thought that was weird, and I looked in my rearview mirror, and I saw the taillights of this supposed car, I guess, that I never saw. It was just one headlight. And the weird thing is, the taillights in my rearview mirror were not in the lane they were supposed to be in. They were in my lane. And in fact, the taillights were small and low together, and there was a great distance between me and the car behind me. Remember, this is all dark. So I knew there was somebody else traveling on my side of the road, but they were way back there, and I could see their headlights. So when I looked in my rearview mirror to check, what just happened, and I saw those taillights looked like they were going into the headlights of the next car. And in fact, the car behind me, even though it was way back there, slowed way down real quick. I never heard a crash. They never caught back up with me. I don't understand what happened. It was just something unexplainable. So that's my little supernatural experience there. I told you guys I'd share some real stories from my life. So again, this was about 2020 or 2021. And here's what's weird. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie with Bruce Willis, and I think I'm getting the name right, called The Sixth Sense. Okay, this movie, and I'm going to go ahead and give it away, so you'll need to fast forward through this part, and I'll give a thumbs up when I'm done talking about it. Because if you don't want any spoilers, right? Okay, so in this movie, I don't even know when it came out, in the 90s sometime, I guess. But in this movie, he's a psychologist, and he experiences a whole lot of strange events in his life, and he can't figure out why. His wife just seems depressed. She cries all the time. She no longer even talks to him or even acknowledges him whatsoever. And the only friend he seems to have is this young boy who talks with him. But his whole life otherwise has just totally changed. And we come to find out that in the movie, the big surprise, the big reveal at the end is that he died but didn't know it. And he was a ghost. But the little boy had this ability, this supernatural ability, this special ability, like a superpower, or whatever you want to call it, to see spirits. So anyway, it was kind of a neat movie. But again, in my life, when this happened in my life, and by the way, I'm done told everybody I'd give them a thumbs up that I was done talking about the movie. Okay, so in my life, it was kind of a strange thing driving home, but whatever. Thank God I seem to be okay. Nothing happened and everything's fine. Well, this started a chain of events. I don't know that this really started the chain of events, but kind of like that movie, all these strange things happen in my life. And at this point now, 4 or 5 years later, my life is completely different. I'm no longer married. There's been some revelations about people in my life that were very shocking. There's been a lot of challenges in my life, some relationships that kind of were challenged, some that have changed, some that have just fallen apart. My job changed, just where I live changed, the way I interact with those people in my life prior has changed. A lot of unexplained things. And I have been joking for some time now with friends and family, who know about some things like my divorce or whatever. I'll joke and say things like, gosh, sometimes it just feels like I'm in the Twilight Zone. Things are just so weird. And then all of a sudden one day it dawned on me about that movie, The Sixth Sense. And I remembered that experience that I had and how it felt energetically like it went through me. and there's even more to this story. I won't go into the very specific details, but I'll at least share that, children say a lot of what's on their mind. They don't really have a filter. And I have been told that that I don't know, children, again, this is just, but I've had a child tell me, basically, I'm like, how do I say this? That I was going to die at a particular time. Many times. And it kind of, I tried to dig deeper and ask questions, and there was never an explanation for it. So eventually, these comments kind of went away, and thank goodness. But and who knows? It could have been a cartoon or anything that influences kids. I have no idea. But there have been and many other things I'm probably not even remembering right this minute to share with you. So earlier today, this song came to me. This is from, I guess, the 90s too. And it's called One Headlight. That's the name of the song. And I never really cared for the song because the music itself was sort of not really depressing, but not exactly happy, just sort of strange, and I don't know if you would call it melancholy. There's just something about the lyrics that's, not something that I just think of when I want to turn on the radio and be like, yeah, I really want to hear that song. But I want to share with you all the lyrics of it, because that night when that car met me on the road, it was one headlight that was over in my side. And so I want to share those lyrics. The song is called One Headlight, and it's by a band called the Wallflowers. And so we'll get into that next. Okay, part 2. Here we go. Sharing the lyrics to the song One Headlight by the Wallflowers. Verse 1. So long ago, I don't remember when, that's when they say I lost my only friend. Well, they said she died easy of a broken heart disease as I listened through the cemetery trees. I seen the sun coming up at the funeral at dawn, the long broken arm of human law. Now it always seemed such a waste. She always had a pretty face. I wondered why she hung around this place. And then the chorus. Come on, try a little. Nothing is forever. There's got to be something better than in the middle. But me and Cinderella, we put it all together. We can drive it home with one headlight. In verse 3, she said it's cold. It feels like Independence Day, and I can't break away from this parade. But there's got to be an opening somewhere here in front of me, through this maze of ugliness and greed. And I seen the sign up ahead at the county line bridge, saying all is good and nothingness is dead. Well, run until she's out of breath. She ran until there's nothing left. She hit the end. It's just her window ledge. And of course the chorus again. And then it sums it up with the last 2 verses. So it says, well, this place is old. It feels just like a beat up truck. I turned the engine, but the engine doesn't turn. Well, it smells of cheap wine and cigarettes. This place is always such a mess. Sometimes I think I'd like to watch it burn. I'm so alone, and I feel just like somebody else. Man, I ain't changed, but I know I ain't the same. But somewhere here in between the city walls of dying dreams, I think her death, it must be killing me. And I want to talk about this a little bit. The first thing that stuck out to me is that in the beginning it says, so long ago I don't remember when. That's when they say I lost my only friend. So it's almost like you could say this could be a person who's grieving, and they're grieving to such a degree that they've dissociated from reality, and they can't remember what should be very memorable events in their life and things like that. But it also can lead into looking at this whole story. I say story, it's really a song, but isn't that what a song is? But through the lens of personification and symbolism, okay? And so that was what I was thinking, is this seems and feels heavily symbolic, this whole song, all the lyrics. So I, of course, asked Google, what does this mean? And the AI overview says, the song One Headlight by the Wallflowers is about perseverance in the face of loss and uncertainty, with the metaphor of driving with one headlight symbolizing moving forward with limited means or clarity. Lead singer Jakob Dylan has explained the song is about the death of ideas, referring to feelings of being stuck and struggling with creative or personal battles, rather than the literal death of a person. The lyrics acknowledge darkness and pain, but also emphasize resilience and the determination to keep going, even when things seem broken or incomplete. And I thought that was really beautiful. And so using that as your lens, your perspective, you could certainly go back into the song and pull some further meaning from it if you wanted to. When it says it symbolizes moving forward with limited means or clarity, in the Bible it talks about the wilderness season and how typically when God is making a big move in our life, as opposed to us making a big move or change in our life, it's the way that we experience it is completely different when He's the one in the driver's seat versus when we're the one in the driver's seat. And y'all, I haven't had my coffee today. And it's 2 o'clock. It's 2:04. So I kind of feel like this might be clearer since we're talking about clarity after my coffee, but I just couldn't wait. I got home and I had to share it with you all. So coffee's next, and who knows, maybe I'll make another video. But yeah, that's what the wilderness is. It's a transition period, and we can find ourselves very uncertain because, again, we're not the one in charge at this point during this particular kind of experience. Okay, when there's a transition in our life, things don't make sense. It feels like the Twilight Zone. There's no clarity. It's our very sense of judgment and discernment is just totally foggy. We feel stuck. We can lose motivation during this time. It's certainly a test of our strength and perseverance. And so, through the Christian lens, you may call this your wilderness period. And it's in all the fairy tales. It's in all of the symbolically laden legends and lore of old. It's in all of them. And I've mentioned this in many videos. If this is your first video you're finding, I would recommend, if you have interest, to look into The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell, because that kind of captures the experience. It's a lens to use, at least. But the other thing I want to say is this, because I don't want to go too deep into personalizing all of this at this point. For me, because I know there's something in here for you too, okay? And so, in the song, it specifically says at the end here, let me find it. Or it might be in the middle. Yeah, it's in the middle. Verse 4. First of all, I will share this. Verse 4, it says, and I seen the sign up ahead at the County Line Bridge. That was the road's name that I was driving on that night, was County Line Road. So I found that really Just a little, just a little spark, or what they call a God wink, I guess, maybe. A coincidence that feels meaningful, and that it's just, sometimes these things can be confirmation, that what God is leading us to and showing us is meant to help us along the path. Because there's always helpers on the journey, right? But in this verse it says, and I seen the sign up ahead at the county line bridge saying all is good and nothingness is dead. So go ahead and start thinking of, and this is something that was a part of the sermon that I heard this morning, how we can view completion or graduation or coming to a point in our life where things are changing. We can view that as an ending, but God sees that as a beginning. And sometimes it takes us a while to realize that's what's really going on. Okay, and I have another link I want to share with you all. Another little short, very short. If you have Instagram and you can access this little animated story, it's very short. It was just awesome. And it's talking about this very thing. And so how it calls it, in the story, the universe. But you can use your lens if you feel more spiritually connected and acknowledge, the Heavenly Father, then you can use that lens, of course, too. But how we're not just out here alone, we're actually, it's interactive, okay? The numinous and the spiritual and our physical experience, it's intertwined and interacting together. But, yes, so sometimes our limited vision is that things are coming to an end, when in fact, it's the beginning. So looking further at this verse, it says, saying all is good and nothingness is dead. Nothingness is dead. Think about what God in the Bible defines as things that are fruitful and good versus things that people can value. I'm talking like whole cultures and nations and just, large groups of people can put a lot of value on that really, through God's eyes, He says all of that is in vain. It's pointless. Pointless. So think about maybe the things in your life that are gone, because you've turned the page. There's another song. And, would God view those things as nothingness? And all of our efforts and everything that we went through trying to hold on to these things, would He view all that as just everything being done in vain and ultimately nothingness? It's just something to think about. Maybe not. Maybe partially so. Who knows? But it says, well, she's running till she's out of breath. And don't we do that? I know I do. She ran until there's nothing left. She hit the end. It's just her window ledge. Okay, so I'm going to share just a little tiny part of another true and real story for me. It was a dream I had where I actually went in the clouds to a mansion, and it was awesome, and I was with Jesus. And I was told and instructed to go and I was actually not told and instructed. Let me back up. I was brought to a room, a large room with other women, and they were all painting and doing art, and I was left there. But I was so focused on Him that I couldn't focus on what He had asked me to do, by bringing me there, taking me there. Excuse me. So I wound up looking for Him out in the hallways, because I was just like, wow, that's all I could think about was Him. And He wound up taking me to this window ledge, but it was an exit, and it was to go back to my life, my regular life. And He was very loving and gentle, but the message to me was that, I didn't do what He asked me to do. And so I saw out the window that, there's my old life there, and He helped me down, and I exited through the window. But anyway, I I like how it says she hit the end, it's just her window ledge. So consider that, even in the Bible it says we see now as though through a glass dimly or darkly. So there's like this covering, this veil, right? And it symbolizes, again, we can't see the whole picture. God sees the whole picture. And while there is free will, God is still at work. And I think it ultimately comes to acknowledging that and respecting where we fit into His workings. And, really, if you contemplate this enough, it can lead you to a place of great peace. And here's another thing that was on my mind a couple of days ago. It ties right in. And that is, you've heard a lot of the philosophical teachings of, we should just be the observer. Well, the word that came to me the other day was to witness. We're constantly looking for what we can do, making things and doing things and making it happen and implementing our own plans and doing and striving and doing. And I'm thinking, she's running until she's out of breath. She ran until there's nothing left. She hit the end. It's just her window ledge. Well, God is very much talking in the Bible about not getting so distracted by our doing and our own ability, and also not idolizing anything within His creation, but looking beyond that to the Creator. And so really our only job is to witness, to be a witness to His creation, and to His workings, and to His plans. And in so doing, this striving and this need we feel to get things done, so much, and to push forward our own plans, really kind of takes a back seat. And I think that if we can consciously try to get to that place where we're more relaxed and we're more it's really living more faithfully, because we're consciously acknowledging that He's the grand and primary doer, in life and in our lives. If we can get to that place of submission, then I think that when there is truly something that's not in vain, something that's really impactful and important that is our part to actually do, I think that we will feel that conviction and we'll know it. I think that it'll be more clear to us. I think maybe we struggle sometimes with clarity, especially in a wilderness season when things are changing in our life, because we're still operating the way we used to in chapter 1, in part 1. And God's trying to work on us to get us to the place of being how and who we need to be for part 2, for chapter 2. Where He's the one in charge. We're not in charge anymore. And that takes some work on our part. And it can feel like an ending when we're between the chapters. But God's like, it's only the beginning. That was all practice. And hopefully a lot of lessons. Even though I know they were painful. I know He's saying that to us. I know it was painful. And through the Christian lens, if that's part of your beliefs, then you would say, He really does know firsthand suffering, in the physical form especially. So, just some things to think about, as always. I feel like I could ramble on forever. But I hope that you enjoyed the message. I hope that you got something of value out of it. And if I think of anything else, I'll make a part 2 Even though these were like part 1 and 2 of one video, I'm going to put them together. So put these 2 clips together for you all. But if I think of anything else, I'll share that as well. So again, I'd love to hear any thoughts that you feel called to share in the comments. I'd love to read those. I hope you're doing good. And thank you so much for coming along to hear the message. I hope that you have a beautiful day. And I'll see you again very soon.